You were never meant to hear this. Beneath the painted smiles and neatly trimmed hedges of Meadowview Estates lies a rot that reeks of power unchecked, a darkness wrapped in HOA bylaws and fake neighborhood watch signs. They call it community governance. But what it really is control. This is the story of Robert, but it could be anyone. A man who thought he was moving into peace and found himself caught in a silent war of surveillance, manipulation, and punishment. All waged by a woman with a title, HOA president, and a God complex. Patricia Hawthorne didn't just enforce rules. She created her own kingdom, and like all tyrants, she feared only one thing: exposure. It started with a yard sale, or what Robert thought was a yard sale. At 6:45 a.m., the first car pulled up, headlights off like a thief in the fog, then another, then another. By 7 o'clock, Robert's driveway looked like a riot scene. Strangers swarming, grabbing heirlooms, power tools, furniture, without paying, screaming that it was all free. Robert ran out, heart racing, eyes wide. This was theft. And standing across the street, arms folded, smiling like she'd won a war without firing a shot, was Patricia, HOA president, enforcer, queen of pettiness. A neighbor's text came through. "Dude, why'd you post your sale as free all over the forums?" Robert never did. Someone had logged into every local community group, every bulletin board, every neighborhood chat, and posted free yard sale. Everything must go. The account was anonymous, but the fingerprints, they were Patricia's. This was no random prank. This was targeted sabotage. Because 6 months ago, Robert painted his mailbox desert sand, shade hash 474. The rule said shade hash 473. That was his original sin. And Patricia? Patricia enforced the rules like they were scripture. She lived for the sound of a penalty letter hitting your mailbox. Robert's. Most men retreat. They take the hit, swallow their pride, and learn their place in the hierarchy. That's how systems like this survive, through silence. But Robert wasn't built for obedience. Not anymore. When Patricia stood across the street smirking, surrounded by the chaos she orchestrated, Robert felt something shift inside him. Not just anger, not just loss, something ancient, a flicker of clarity, like a man waking up inside a dream he didn't know he was trapped in. And that's the thing about control. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. He confronted her. She played innocent. Sweet smile, fake concern, religious hypocrisy dripping from every syllable. Unauthorized commercial activity, she said, as if selling a few old chairs was a crime worthy of financial ruin. Then she hit him with the $500 fine, like a queen demanding tribute from a rebellious subject. But this wasn't about money. It never was. This was about humiliation, punishment, ritual power. That night, Robert attended the HOA board meeting for the first time, not as a citizen, not as a neighbor, but as a witness to the machinery of false governance. Patricia sat at the head like a high priestess, her minions flanking her, nodding at every word like it was gospel. Robert tried to speak. They didn't listen. The photos of his illegal yard sale were passed around like evidence at a witch trial. No mention of the fake posts, no interest in the truth. Rules are rules, they said. What they meant was, control is control. But here's where everything begins to shift, because Robert didn't go home defeated. He went home determined. He dug through records, HOA charters, budget reports, property laws, and there, buried in the legal sludge, he found it. The crack in the fortress. Patricia's golf cart, the one she rode through the neighborhood like a sheriff in a lawless town. Chrome wheels, custom P. The deeper Robert went, the darker the truth became. This wasn't just about a stolen yard sale. It was about a kingdom built on silence, forged in intimidation, and run by a woman who mistook fear for respect. Patricia wasn't managing a community. She was running a psychological operation. And like all tyrants, she left a trail. The HOA charter, dry and unreadable to most, had become Robert's weapon. Clause 17C. Any community asset misused for personal benefit could be liquidated to recover homeowner damages. Even better, if the board failed to prevent homeowner losses caused by negligence or malicious action, they were liable. Suddenly, Patricia's parade float of a golf cart wasn't a symbol of authority. It was leverage. Robert wasn't alone anymore. Whispers spread. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years began to speak. Margaret, Patricia's own vice president, quietly handed Robert old emails. Budget requests ignored. Personal purchases disguised as neighborhood improvements. HOA funds used to detail the golf cart like it was a trophy. Spa visits billed as board retreats. Security patrols that never happened. It wasn't just petty tyranny, it was embezzlement, fraud. And the HOA Finance Committee, separate from the board, had teeth. They'd been watching Patricia, waiting for a misstep. Robert didn't just give them evidence, he gave them the perfect storm. He filed his motion. In 48 hours, it was approved. The golf cart was now a forfeited asset. Legal, public, ready for auction. A notice was stapled to the community bulletin board, delivered to Patricia's mailbox, and posted in every digital form she once ruled with an iron click. Seizure of HOA property to recover homeowner damages. The reaction? Pure chaos. That evening, Patricia stood on Robert's porch, pounding her fists against the door like a queen finding the peasants had risen. You can't. Saturday morning arrived like a thunderclap wrapped in sunlight. Robert's driveway, once the scene of humiliation, was now a battleground for justice. But this time, he wasn't alone. This time, the neighborhood gathered not in chaos, but in anticipation. Some came to bid. Most came to witness. Because what was about to happen wasn't just an auction. It was an execution. The golf cart sat center stage, gleaming like a fallen idol. Robert had it professionally detailed, chrome shining, tires scrubbed, every surface a mirror to reflect Patricia's downfall. Legal notices were posted. Security was present. A real auctioneer stood ready. At 9 a.m., the crowd spilled onto the lawns, coffee cups in hand, lawn chairs open, eyes sharp. Whispers moved through the people like wind through dry grass. Men who'd once feared fines for mailbox heights now laughed. Women once chastised for flower choices smiled like something sacred was being restored. At 9:15, Patricia arrived. No golf cart, no entourage, just her SUV, and the ghost of a crown slipping from her head. Her eyes scanned the crowd. But where once she saw subjects, now she saw spectators. She stormed toward Robert, face twisted, voice trembling. Stop this. It's theft. It's harassment. I'll call my lawyer. Robert, unshaken, handed her a thick envelope. Finance Committee approval, charter bylaw references, photographic evidence, the forfeiture notice. But the final page, that was the dagger. A clause stating that any board member misusing HOA property could be removed without vote. She froze. Unless you have a court injunction, the auctioneer said, clearing his throat. We begin in 5 minutes. The silence was crushing. Even her allies had abandoned her. Margaret stood in the back, arms crossed, eyes down. The rest of the board, gone. Then the auction began. $500, $600, $750. Hands rose like fists at... The final bid rang out like a bell of judgment. $1, $700. Susan from Maple Avenue stepped forward, radiant with purpose. Her roses had been denied, her voice silenced. But now, she was the one holding the keys to Patricia's kingdom. She climbed into the golf cart as the crowd parted like waves before a queen. The horn honked once, sharp, triumphant. As she rolled past Patricia, slow and deliberate, not a single word was exchanged. Because none were needed. Humiliation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the silence after the applause. But this was more than spectacle. Robert knew it. The auction was just the fuse. The real explosion came after. An emergency HOA board meeting was called within the hour. Patricia wasn't in charge anymore. She was the subject. The finance committee brought the documents. Neighbors brought their stories. Every fine, every petty punishment, every stolen moment of peace. It all poured out like flood waters behind a broken dam. The vote to remove Patricia? Unanimous. But the storm didn't stop there. While Patricia watched her reign collapse, the finance committee opened the rest of the books. That's when the rot revealed itself. Thousands of dollars. Gone spa visits labeled as meetings. Personal Amazon purchases filed under grounds maintenance. The paint job on the golf cart. Security camouflage. They weren't just violations. They were crimes. A report was filed. The district attorney got involved. Patricia Hawthorne, once untouchable, once feared, was arrested in her own driveway, bathrobe barely tied, hair in knots. Neighbors watched through their windows as the sirens lit up the street she once ruled. Robert stood silently behind the blinds, sipping his coffee. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. Because this was never about revenge. It was about restoration. A neighborhood stripped of fear. Men and women, They'll tell you this was just a neighborhood feud, a petty fight over a golf cart, A Karen story. But men like you know better. This was a microcosm of everything wrong with the world. The HOA wasn't just a homeowners association. It was a miniature empire, a controlled environment, a testing ground for obedience. And Patricia? She was the warden in pearls. You see, systems like these don't need weapons. They use paperwork, not soldiers, but compliance officers. They don't break down your door. They bleed you through silence, strip you through shame, and smile as you self-destruct under the weight of invisible chains. Robert. Quote, S story isn't rare. It quote, S a blueprint. You move into a neighborhood thinking you're buying peace, safety, stability. But what you're really buying is surveillance, psychological conditioning, a silent contract to obey, while believing you're free. But Robert, he broke the loop. He turned the bylaws into blades. He made the system eat itself. And when Patricia stood before the judge, stripped of her status, pleading guilty to fraud and embezzlement, she wasn't just a corrupt official being sentenced. She was a symbol, a warning. Because every time a man says no to blind authority, every time he reads the fine print and finds the trap door, he threatens the entire illusion. That illusion that says, stay small, stay quiet, stay grateful. But once you see the mechanics behind control, once you truly understand how power is enforced through policies, appearances, and fear, you can never go back to sleep. You become dangerous. And that's what they fear most. Not noise, not rebellion, but awareness. So now it's your move. Are you still asleep in your own Meadowview, still letting petty tyrants rent space in your life? Or are you ready to audit the system because this story wasn't about a man getting even? It was about a man awake,